All right, good afternoon to everybody. Chief Meteorologist Joe Fitzwater. We are interrupting your regularly scheduled broadcast for a tornado warning that has been issued in portions of Greenbrier County. If you were on Facebook, we were talking about this thunderstorm. It was rotating. Well, that rotation has become much stronger over the last few minutes. You can easily see where this storm is rotating. You don't even need me to show you this. The inflow here into the thunderstorm causing that rotation just to the north of Alderson. If you are watching this from Alderson, you need to get into your safe spot. So if you've got a basement, that's the place to go. If you do not have a basement, if you're somebody like me, you need to get into the interior portion of your home. As many walls between you and outside as possible, preferably with no windows. So let's put this into motion here if we can. Looks like we'll get the hand tracker going here in just a second. I got this thing popped up in a hurry. But there is the area of emphasis here to the north of Alderson. This is moving down to the south-southeast toward Alderson. In between Alderson and Ronceverte is kind of the area of emphasis. So yes, Lewisburg is in the tornado warning, but this storm is going to remain just to your west. It is a close call that we're looking at here, but that is the area, the corridor that we're looking at, mainly across southwestern portions of the county. So if you're watching this over in Lewisburg, I'd still probably get into your safe spot because you're awfully close by. But again, the area of greatest concern is going to be well off to your west, closer to the border here for Summers and Greenbrier counties than down into parts of Monroe County. So we can continue to take a look at this. We have severe thunderstorm watch until 8 p.m. for most of the region. But let's take a look at the rotation itself, and as we do so, you'll see the area of concern that we are looking at, and it is right in here. So we're going to zoom on in south of the Smoot area. We had somebody on the Facebook Live that was talking that they saw quite a bit of hail in the Smoot area a little bit earlier. That storm has now shifted down to your south and is over toward the small community of Blue Sulphur Springs. So this is the area where we're seeing the rotation. I'm going to turn the lightning off just for a bit because I want to look at the rotation itself, which does look to be a little bit broader than what it was a few minutes ago. But let's take a look at this and watch how this area of rotation has continued to work its way down to the south and east. So what are we looking for when we're talking about seeing areas of rotation on radar? So let's pause this for a second. Keep in mind that from this perspective, we're looking at this storm from the Blacksburg, Virginia radar. So we can look at the direction that these wind particles are moving. And so what we're looking at here are areas of red and green that are very close together. So the red indicates particles that are moving away from the radar. So Blacksburg's down to our south and east. So these particles are moving in this direction. Meanwhile, the green areas indicate particles that are moving toward the radar. So they're moving in this direction. So you put those together. When they get real close together, that creates rotation. And so that is what we're keeping a close eye on here as the thunderstorm continues to scoot down to the south and east. This looks fairly broad here at this point, but there have been some times, again, if I move back up to the north, or move this map a little bit farther up to the north, there were some times there, especially toward the Sawmill Hollow area, where that rotation did get tight there for a couple of frames. And so that's why the National Weather Service has gone ahead and issued that tornado warning. This storm has been rotating for about a half hour, so that's why we were live on Facebook tracking it for you. And again, this continues to scoot down to the south and to the east and is scooting into portions of Greenbrier County. So this would eventually head toward the Alderson area. Alderson down here toward the border, of course. So it's fine in Alderson right now, but that thunderstorm is up to your north. Let's put the reflectivity back up. And as we do so, you'll be able to see that that storm is starting to encroach. There is the area of circulation here that we're looking at. So this is out toward the Blaker Mills area at this point. There along Alta Drive, of course, Smoot Road up to the north and west. That takes you back up into Smoot itself. And these are the areas that we're watching very closely. So, of course, Lewisburg is farther to the east. And if you're watching this in Fort Spring, yeah, you're under the warning as well, but you'll be just fine here in these areas and back toward Ronceverte. Again, these areas in the tornado warning, but the issue here as far as that area of rotation remains farther back to your west. So that's going to be farther back toward Ronceverte, or excuse me, that's going to be farther back toward the Alderson area here over the next few minutes, not in the Ronceverte area, we're clear there. And then farther up to the north, again, Lewisburg's way over here to the east. So we're seeing showers. We're seeing some thunderstorms, likely some lightning in these spots. But again, for the most part, we're seeing just some stormy conditions in these areas, not the risk for the tornado that is prevalent farther off to the south and west toward Alderson. So again, Alderson right there. Of course, you've got Route 3 that kind of scoots through in town there. And then you've got Route 63, which takes you out toward Fort Spring. And these are the areas that we have to watch out here over the next few minutes. So I'm switching back over. Where is that rotation? A little farther back up to the north still yet. But that'll be the area that we have to watch here for the potential for some rotation to produce a tornado. And again, that is why the tornado warning has been issued. WB, if we can, if you're able to, if we could switch over to Links 2 for a moment, that would be great. I usually switch back and forth between feeds here when we do this. But while he's working on doing that, we continue to look at that area of rotation. And again, that is an area that we have to continue to respect here as this scoots down to the south and east. The good news is the rotation overall is looking much broader than what it was a few minutes ago. So when we first hopped on air, this was a pretty pronounced rotation on radar for a couple of minutes, and now we're starting to see things a little bit better than what it was earlier. But there is the thunderstorm itself. What I'm going to do is zoom back out and zoom back towards some of the other thunderstorms that are in the area. We also have a severe thunderstorm that's across portions of Fayette and northeastern portions of Raleigh County. That storm is scooting into portions of Summers County here shortly, and it has the potential of producing damaging wind gusts as well as some heavy rainfall with that. So let's zoom in to that storm here for a moment. We'll take a look at a couple of the other storms that are occurring here in our region. This storm not rotating at this juncture. It's just producing some damaging wind gusts, some small hail. That's headed into northeastern parts of Raleigh toward the Bragg and Abraham areas over toward Sandstone Mountain. Sandstone itself down toward Brooks over the next 15 to 20 minutes. That's another healthy downpour that's out toward Arnett, scooting south and east eventually toward the Beckley area. But again, if you're tuning in for the moment, this is the thunderstorm that was tornado warned at this point, is showing less in the way of threats for producing a tornado. So we're going to remain on here, though, until this tornado warning is allowed to expire. This does include portions of Monroe County as well. So we haven't been talking about Monroe as much, but this does include all the way down to about the Union area. And again, this thunderstorm kind of in the midst of cycling at this point. What do we mean by cycling? We see the rotation, it kind of gets absorbed, and now there's another appendage that's trying to develop here north and west of the original area of rotation. So we're still going to have to continue to watch this over the next several minutes as it does cut down to the south and east. Regardless, if you're in Lewisburg, you're seeing some heavy rainfall. Ronceverte, you're seeing some heavy rainfall. And farther up to the north, things have improved quite a bit up toward Smoot, up toward Raynell and Rupert. Yeah, that storm was pretty wicked there for a few minutes around 2 o'clock, but now things are looking totally fine. And outside of a few scattered showers, that will be about the end of the game here as far as the risk for severe weather in those areas. But we head farther down to the south, and that's where we do have that risk for that tornado that does continue. So what areas are we talking about? Let's zoom back in on this thunderstorm. And as we do so, we'll include some of these towns. So this gets up just to the Union area there, including Wolf Creek and Alderson. And again, as I pause this, this was the original area of rotation, but this part of the storm seems to be weakening. We're losing that inflow notch that indicates that we have that rotation occurring in the thunderstorm. This appears to be the new area of rotation that we're going to have to watch closely that is just to the north of Alderson. Let's switch the feed here to the storm winds to see what we've got going on as far as the potential for rotation. Oh yeah, so here we are again north of the Blaker Mills area. That is the area of rotation that we'll have to continue to watch. This is some broad mid-level rotation, so this is not rotation that's likely occurring at the surface, at least at this point, but that could continue to redevelop into something that could become problematic here over the next few minutes. So that's why that tornado warning is continuing to take place here this afternoon. This setup that we have this afternoon is the result of some very humid conditions that are present. This is also the result of the heat and a lot of wind energy in the atmosphere. The wind energy is pretty impressive, and the surface instability is impressive. So again, it's like making a cake, right? When we make the right cake, it has the best ingredients, and they're prepared in the right way. And when you have these same kind of ingredients that are present for making thunderstorms, the same thing can happen. So again, there's the area of rotation that is north, just north and east now of Alderson. That's good news for downtown Alderson. This is likely just going to squeak by you to the east. It'll be between Alderson and Ronceverte where the broad mid-level rotation is occurring. Let's switch the radar back up. So yeah, that coordinates with this new inflow notch, and that's what we'll have to watch. This is a developing area of rotation that is occurring over the Blaker Mills area that will continue to push down and kind of spin and pivot its way down to the south and east. So this storm likely not done, at least with the rotation aspect in the short term, as it does continue its way down to the south. Again, farther east, we're looking good. Out toward Ronceverte and Lewisburg, it's just stormy, typical storm activity that we're seeing as a result of these thunderstorms. But it's areas back to the west that we'll watch closely. Real quickly, for those that are seeing the entire feed, let's see what's going on elsewhere, because we do have a severe thunderstorm warning that is in parts of Fayette and northeastern Raleigh counties. We also have some strong storms in McDowell County. Let's zoom in on that here real quickly. And as we do so, again, that tornado warning continues until 3 o'clock for Greenbrier and Monroe counties. We'll get back to that here in just a moment, but let's include some other folks. Heavy downpours occurring across parts of McDowell and southern McDowell counties, scooting into Tazewell counties. That's not good for those areas because they did see some pretty heavy rain earlier, and the lightning is impressive with this storm. We're seeing likely a couple of dozen strikes with this particular cell as it pushes its way down to the south and to the east. So these are areas that already have seen some heavy rainfall earlier today, and that continues to develop and work its way from northwest to the southeast here through this afternoon. You can see how this storm continues to develop and strengthen as it works its way out of McDowell County gradually and scoots its way into Abbs Valley there, as pushing into portions of Tazewell County and eventually into Blaine County as well. This should be able to hold together as it does so. But let's zoom back out, take a look at the latest with what's going on with the tornado warned storm that's in southern parts of Greenbrier County, getting ready to inch its way into Monroe County. So we zoom back in here, take a look, and again, this is the area that we're watching here. So there's Alderson. It's a close call. I would definitely be in my safe spot in Alderson just to make sure that you're in good shape here, but it's really just east of town here where we have to keep a close eye on this particular cell. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more even, and out toward in between Alderson and Fort Spring. This is the area of rotation. In fact, let's pop that rotation, that wind back on here so that we can see it. So the area of rotation is kind of a little more disorganized at the moment, kind of encompassing much of Alta Drive, north and east of Alderson. So that's good news in the scheme that we're likely not seeing anything on the ground right now. There's a good chance that that's probably not happening north and east of Alderson, but there's still some mid-level rotation going on. So this storm could try to re-strengthen into something here shortly. And the thing about setups like this, it does not take a lot of time to get these thunderstorms to re-strengthen themselves, right? This line of thunderstorms formed in about a half an hour. It was a very quick period of time where we saw that take place. And so again, as we continue to watch this thunderstorm scoot down to the south and to the east, the new area of rotation that we're going to be watching is right near that small community of halfway in between Alderson and Fort Spring, which indicates halfway between the two. And that's going to be right along Route 63. So Alta Drive, still kind of under the gun, so to speak, but State Route 63 is a roadway I would want to avoid at this hour while this thunderstorm scoots down to the south and to the east. We'll pop the radar back up here so we can see. Yeah, so there we go. We have two things going on here. So we have this area of rotation that is occurring east of Alderson. We also have what we call a hail core that's occurring near Fort Spring. So you see the dark purples, you see the blacks. That indicates some really high reflectivity return rates from the radar. So this indicates likely at least some half-inch to perhaps 1-inch diameter hail that is occurring just near the Fort Spring area, scooting down to the south and to the east. That would eventually head into the Sinks Grove and Pickaway areas if it can sustain itself, which it very well may be able to do here in the short term. So again, we've been live on here for a bit for this tornado warning, and this thunderstorm is continuing to show supercellular characteristics that are indicative of having the potential of producing that tornado. So again, the area of emphasis here is just to the east of Alderson. So Alderson right there, of course, along the Monroe and Greenbrier County borders, but it's farther off to the east here where we have the real issues here in terms of that rotation, and that will be supported here when we switch back over. We can look at the correlation coefficient to see if we see any signs of debris. Not really seeing anything like that, so again, that's always good, but we can still check some of these areas. How about the triple thread? Let's see what we've got. Rotation tracker first, not seeing a lot, so that's good. This is mostly some weak stuff at this point, but we go a little farther up to the north, and that's where things were getting interesting, up toward Blue Sulphur Springs. This is earlier. This is when the tornado warning was issued because the rotation was trending much stronger up in those spots. We were live on Facebook when we were talking about that, and then the tornado warning got issued. Let's take a look at the Barron triple threat. And again, there you go. There's that hail core that I was talking about, so we could kind of pinpoint this and tell you exactly at least what the in-house product is estimating, and it is estimating as much as an 1.5 inch diameter hail. Now that's probably a little bit on the high side, but usually I like to take these values and half it. So 3/4 inch to maybe 1 inch diameter hail is going to be a good bet east of Alderson, between Alderson and Fort Spring here in southwestern portions of Greenbrier County. So again, if you're watching this in Lewisburg, you're totally fine. If you're watching this farther up to the north now in Rupert and Raynell, you are totally fine. There's still some scattered showers around, but the risk for severe weather continues to be something that you're not having to worry about here. But let's clear this here for a moment, and as we do so, we will show you the latest on this thunderstorm that now is starting to inch its way into Monroe County. So this is about to move out of Greenbrier County and into Monroe County. So Wolf Creek, again, I would be getting into your safe spot. Pickaway and Sinks Grove, I would go ahead and get into my safe spot. That includes all the way down toward Monitor and eventually toward Union. Now, we'll see how well this storm holds together once we get toward the Union area to see if we can get that thunderstorm to weaken before it gets there. But that does include, the tornado warning, I should say, does include downtown Union here in central portions of Monroe County. Again, the storm well up to your north at this point. Let's put the animation back on this. I'm going to zoom out just for a bit so you can see how this thunderstorm has developed over the last little bit. And again, these storms, generally speaking, moving kind of that southwesterly denotation here. So again, that thunderstorm now starting to exit portions of Greenbrier County and now entering into parts of Monroe County. Elsewhere, we do have a new severe thunderstorm warning that's been issued for Tazewell, western Blaine counties. We were talking about that a short while ago. That thunderstorm looks like it is trying to show some signs of rotating as well, so we will have to keep a close eye on that. Another strong thunderstorm getting ready to encroach on downtown Beckley. Unfortunately, I don't believe I have the Monroe County camera loaded into our menu here, but we can look at the Beckley camera, and let's see what we've got going on here. So, yeah, seeing some darkening skies out toward Beckley, and that will likely only continue. We look out toward Lewisburg. Let's see what the latest is with that. And yeah, it's kind of a stormy afternoon in Lewisburg, but the threats remain down to your south and west. So not having to worry about this in downtown Lewisburg here at this point, which is great. We're not expecting that to change. But let's go ahead and switch back over to the radar. There we go. And there is the area of concern, which is now into northern parts of Monroe County. Let me close this menu back up so that we can see things a bit more. And we'll zoom back in. And as we continue to do that, we'll show you the area of greatest concern right now, which is now entering into Monroe County. And again, you really don't even need me to show you where the area of rotation is. We'll show you the winds, but it's right here in this indentation across portions of northern Monroe now, just east of downtown Alderson, out toward Monitor in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Monitor kind of going to get hit with a 1-2 punch. You've got this hail core out ahead of the supercell, and then the rotation itself, which follows behind us. So if you're in this particular section of this storm between Monitor and Alderson, definitely do not want to be outside in the midst of this thunderstorm. This is a dangerous thunderstorm that continues to push down to the south and to the east. Union, we're watching this closely. It continues to approach, but it looks like at this point will continue to remain just to your south and east, and then eventually to your east. We'll continue to watch this, though, as it continues to push through, because I highly doubt we've got about 10 minutes of this particular tornado warning, and I highly doubt this is going to be allowed to expire early. But let's take a look at the structure of this thunderstorm once again. And yeah, so that broad area of rotation continues to show up east of Alderson. So again, this is the area that we're watching. Alderson is just up to our north and west right here. So there's Alderson. Of course, you've got State Route 63. That takes you up toward Fort Spring. It's farther south now, entering into Monroe County. It's this broad area of rotation that we're watching for the potential for a brief spin-up tornado. So in this area right in here that we continue to watch this rotation scooting down into the Sinks Grove area, which would be the next community that this storm would be pushing towards. So if you know anyone down in the Sinks Grove area, it would be a good call if you're able to make sure that they are in their safe spots, as this thunderstorm has continued to kind of recycle and suggest some decent rotation with this thunderstorm as it continues down to the south and to the east. So you've got Flat Mountain Road. That would be right there, a spot where I would not want to be in. Scott Hollow Road off of the main drag there in Sinks Grove, another area there off of Route 3 that I would not want to be near here at this point. Let me take that off here and look at the latest with the reflectivity. And we're going to kind of switch back and forth with this. So again, yeah, this thunderstorm kind of, let me zoom back out just for a moment, but let's look at this from a little bit of a wider perspective. And it looks like it's getting a little disorganized, at least for the moment. There we go. That's a better look. Again, we don't have that classic hook. We're kind of seeing this thing getting choked off by the hail core to an extent. That is a pretty impressive hail core that is now moving into the monitor area. So we'll have to watch. Let's pop some storm reports if we've gotten any yet. Doesn't look like any of them have been reported yet, but the National Weather Service is likely very busy with the warning process. We'll see if we get some storm reports that come in with this thunderstorm. But again, that is an impressive hail core. So when we talk about a hail core, we're talking about the part of the thunderstorm, the part of the anvil that produces the hail. So this is a part of the thunderstorm that's likely tens of thousands of feet up in the air. And what happens is the wind pushes up into the updraft of that thunderstorm, right? And that updraft is so strong that it begins allowing that air, the precipitation, to freeze, right? And then we start to see hail begin to form. And I always tell, when I go to school visits, I always tell the kids that hailstones actually form a lot like snowballs do. They kind of roll and they coalesce, right? And they keep building and building like a snowball until the updraft is not strong enough to be able to sustain the growing ice balls. And then that's when they fall to the ground. When we see a signature like this indicates that the updraft is very strong. This indicates that we likely have some pretty decent hail that's being created, that's being detected by radar, that's then falling down to the ground. Now keep in mind, the radar is several, we'll say about 50 miles or so from where this thunderstorm is in Monroe County right now. But with that being said, still likely seeing some hail that's occurring. But again, the hail is on the eastern side, the eastern flank of this thunderstorm that will remain east of Union. The area of rotation is farther back to the west, and so that's easy to find here as we look at the velocity product. Again, this is some pretty broad stuff that we're looking at, but this is headed toward the Union areas. So folks in Union need to keep a close eye on this. The rotation is not as strong as what it was, but it's still showing that signs of broad rotation. So again, getting into your safe spot is important. And that is some development that we'll have to watch here. This is trying to tighten back up here temporarily as it scoots down to the south. So this thunderstorm has continued to show signs of cycling. So by cycling, it kind of loses its punch here with the rotation. Then that rotation gets tight once again, and then it kind of loses it, and then it just kind of keeps going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so again, that is what we see oftentimes with these supercell thunderstorms. But again, if you're just now tuning in, I know we're getting ready to see if this tornado warning gets reissued or not, because it's near 3 o'clock when it was set to expire. But this is the area of emphasis that we are watching here that has now scooted out of Greenbrier County into Monroe County. So you've got Union right here. You've got Monitor, the small community. Of course, you've got Route 3 kind of cutting through. And this is working down to the south. So it's not moving east or anything like that. So folks up in Lewisburg and Ronceverte that are still technically in the warning are not having to deal with the tornadic part of this thunderstorm. However, with that being said, there is a lot of lightning with this storm, so you still don't want to be out in it. But the greatest concern with this storm, which is the tornadic potential, is well away from you in those areas. And Alderson also looking much better as this thunderstorm continues to scoot down to the south. So that is what we're tracking here with this particular storm as it scoots down to the south. And so again, let's pop the radar back up. And yeah, so we call these in meteorology school, this is called a donut hole. So we have to continue to respect this. When we see donut holes in reflectivity, it means there's a lot of rotation that is occurring within the thunderstorm itself. It also indicates that the thunderstorm's trying to reabsorb back into itself, which does show some signs of cycling that is occurring with this storm. So yeah, so see how we're starting to see this thunderstorm, and the tornado warning has been allowed to expire. Now, before we cut back into your regularly scheduled broadcast here over the next couple of minutes, I want to watch this rotation just for a second to see if we see the cycle one more time before it heads back down to the south. If it does not, then we will return back to your regularly scheduled broadcast. But again, these thunderstorms notorious for kind of revamping up that rotation. And so again, as we look at what's going on, this has been the area of concern we've been watching. This has been looking pretty broad here over the last couple of frames. Let's put this into motion. That really bright signature that we had farther up to the north toward Blaker Mills when we first popped up on here, that is not present here at this juncture. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and return back to your regularly scheduled broadcast. However, if we do have any further tornado warnings that are issued, we will be sure to cut back in to let you guys know what's going on. In the meantime, we're getting ready to punch into the 3 o'clock hour, so we're about ready to pop into your 3 o'clock broadcast, and we return back to your regularly scheduled broadcast here on CBS and Fox. All right, good afternoon. I'm Chief Meteorologist Joe Fitzwater, cutting in once again from your regularly scheduled broadcast for a tornado warning that has been issued for southeastern parts of Tazewell as well as western portions of Blaine County. So this thunderstorm has also been rotating for quite a while. So we're going to be switching back and forth between this storm and the storm that's over in Monroe County. That one still bears watching. But again, if you're in Tazewell, this storm has worked its way through. So yes, you're technically still in the warning, but the area of concern is much farther down to your south and to your east. So we'll take a look at what's going on here with this thunderstorm, and we'll look at the velocity signature. Oh yeah, so this is the area that we're watching closely. This is pretty close to Burke's Garden. So again, if you're watching this in Burke's Garden, I would be getting into your safe spot, regardless of whether a tornado is on the ground with this. And by current indications, probably not the case at this point. This is some very strong wind gusts that are occurring with this. We've got some gusts around 70 miles per hour that's occurring. Now, granted, this is at a few thousand feet up in the air, but still, this is some pretty strong activity that is certainly taking place. So a tornado warning, again, this is down in Virginia for portions of Tazewell as well as Blaine counties. And we'll step off the screen here for just a second. And again, if you are watching, we've had numerous scattered showers and thunderstorms that have popped up here this afternoon that have become strong to severe. And these thunderstorms continue to work their way, generally speaking, from northwest to southeast. I'm going to pop the reflectivity back on here for just a moment so that you can see this thunderstorm in action. And there it goes as it works its way, kind of spinning still as it does so, again, from northwest to southeast. So Tazewell, you are in the clear. Ceres, you need to get into your safe spot. Burke's Garden also needs to get into their safe spot. This is also including about as far east as Bland itself, although Bland really not so much in the issue as far as the rotational component is concerned. Still could see some damaging wind gusts with this as it continues to scoot from northwest to southeast. So again, there is that area of concern that's just west of Burke's Garden. Again, this is over in the eastern portions of Tazewell County. This is getting ready to move into what I like to call the arm of Blaine County, which is right here. So you've got, of course, Suter that's off to your east, Eagle Oak off to the east. These areas will be fine from the tornadic potential. Farther back to the west, though, towards Ceres, for example, that would be an area where you're going to want to certainly get into your safe spot. Again, we're seeing this thunderstorm that has shown signs of rotation. I'm going to pause this, and we're going to kind of switch back and forth again between this thunderstorm and the storm that does continue to rotate over in Monroe County here shortly. Let's take a look, though, at the velocity signature of this. And again, west of Burke's Garden, that is the area of concern with this particular cell. Let's go back over into portions of Monroe County. That is still a thunderstorm that, even though it is not tornado warned, has been showing some signs of rotation. So we'll zoom back in here into parts of Monroe County, and this is the thunderstorm in question that is now basically due east of Union. So about halfway between Union and Centennial there along Route 3. We put the rotation back up here, the radar back up so we can see this. And again, you still have this hooking indentation that is occurring due north of Waiteville. So of course you've got Peters Mountain, you've got Zenith. These areas still, if I were you, I would get into my safe spot to make sure that I was in the clear, or at least to protect myself as much as possible, because this thunderstorm, as I show the animation, you can literally see this thing kind of organizing and spinning, and it's possible that we may see another tornado warning issued with this storm here momentarily. I want to emphasize, though, that this storm in Monroe County is not tornado warned, so I want to make sure that we are clear about that. But the storm back toward Tazewell County is. So let's switch back over to that one here. And again, that is the area. That's the reason that we have cut into your broadcast here this afternoon. Again, western portions of Blaine County. This basically gets us right up to the cusp of Wytheville down in Wythe County, which is just outside of our region. But we'll zoom back in. There is that storm looking a little bit disorganized at this moment, which is never a bad thing. And like we were talking about, Tazewell now excluded from the tornado warning. So again, if you're watching this in Tazewell, things are fine in your neck of the woods. Of course, we have had some heavy rainfall. I was just talking to the director that's in my ear that makes all this possible. Bree, she lives not too far from the Tazewell area. Was talking about some of the heavy rainfall that's occurred in parts of Virginia here this afternoon that has resulted in some pretty high creeks in some areas. So thankfully, the heavy rainfall component of this is remaining mainly to the east of those areas that were impacted, but the issue for the potential for a tornado is still possible here. As we take a look, again, there is that area of rotation. This is some pretty broad stuff that we're looking at this juncture just west of Burke's Garden. Now, when I say these kind of things, right, we don't want to hear this and be like, well, there's no threat. There is still certainly a threat that we are looking at, but the prospects of this being on the ground, at least at this juncture west of Burke's Garden, is looking to be on the low side for now. Let's zoom in town level across parts of near the Burke's Garden area, I should say. Again, just to the west of town. Damaging wind gusts, though, definitely something that is possible here with some of these storms. I'm going to turn the storm reports off for a second. Let's pop the eyedropper on here so we can see some of these wind gusts. Yeah, so 69, 70 miles per hour. These are some pretty strong winds, to say the least, that is occurring. And these storms certainly not nice as they push their way down to the south and to the east. And this core of wind is going to just miss downtown Burke's Garden here momentarily. So let's clear the wind and take a look at what's going on as far as that radar component once again. Kind of switching back and forth. Keep in mind, I'm looking at this data just as you guys are. So again, I kind of have to pivot around just as if you guys were looking at this on your own device, whatever tools that you like to use. But again, we have the tornado warned storm in southeastern Tazewell and western Blaine counties. We have the severe thunderstorm warning in Monroe County. These, thankfully, are going to be out of our region here in about an hour or so. So the severe weather risk overall is not going to last that long, and I would expect to see a big cut in these severe thunderstorm watches take place here not too long from now. Basically, if you are along the I-64 corridor and points north, your severe weather threat is pretty much done. We're watching these storms that are down in our far southern counties here at this point. Bree, if we could switch over to Links 2, I want to talk a little bit about the broader perspective here of what we've been looking at. So again, this is what we've been seeing, and these are the storms that are taking shape, and I'm going to switch the feed here real quickly. Again, severe thunderstorm watch in pink, that goes until 8 o'clock here this evening. We'll see if that continues. I think those will be allowed to expire early, though. And again, as we take a look at what's going on regionally, we have this big system, this low pressure system that is creating the wind shear necessary for these showers and thunderstorms to develop. So we had a round of showers earlier today that produced some heavy rainfall. Those have since fallen apart as they work their way into North Carolina. Now we've got this complex of storms, kind of the last hurrah, if you will, that continues to scoot through our region. Until this line of storms pushes through, which will take about another hour or so, we've still got the risk for severe weather continuing here in our region. And we take a look again, there's the tornado warning. That's for southeastern Tazewell, western Blaine counties. We have the severe thunderstorm warning for southeastern Monroe County. Those are the only two cells right now that are severe thunderstorm warned here in our region. We have the severe thunderstorm watch that goes until 8 p.m. We look at the risk for severe weather today. It is a level 2 risk for pretty much all of southern West Virginia outside of our far northern counties. So when we talk about a level 2 risk, that is a risk that is still worth respecting for sure, right? That is something that we still see several times during the course of the year. But that generally means that we'll have some scattered showers and thunderstorms that can become strong to severe. Not a huge amount of them, right? We're not looking at a widespread risk for severe weather, and we have a couple of cells that are warned in our region right now. But still, with that being said, that's where we're talking about these short, intense storms, and that's what we've been experiencing so far here in our region. There's the tornado threat, which is higher down to the south, but keep in mind that this is a 2% shade for our region. What does this mean? A 2% risk of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of a spot. So if you're in Pineville, there is a 2% chance that there will be a tornado within 25 miles of you today. That's what this means. So same thing for Union. If you're in Union, there is a 2% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of you. Wind threat is about 10%, right? And I'm a little surprised this is not a little higher in our region. I think this is by far the bigger threat that we're going to be continuing with over the next hour or two. Small threat for hail. Definitely had some hail earlier in parts of Greenbrier County. Again, we literally had a viewer during our Facebook Live that was talking about there being hail over in the Smoot area. So let's look at this here on Predictor as we work our way through the remainder of this afternoon. Again, by 5 o'clock, this is pretty much done. We may have one isolated strong storm left, but that's going to be about it. We do have some lingering showers around as we head into the evening hours, but that will be about it. I don't buy that little cell popping up there at 8 o'clock. Wise guy showers, right? We're not expecting that taking place, but you get the idea. From there, the weather improves significantly, and we're going to see a good bit of sunshine. Those clouds will hang tough initially on Wednesday, but overall, it's a good-looking day that's going to be on tap here in our region. Power outage numbers right now, we have 100 customers without power in Greenbrier County, 500 without power in Tazewell County. I like to look at this more of a percentage, though. So about 2%, about 1 out of 50 people out of power in Tazewell County. These are very low percentages in Greenbrier and Nicholas counties at less than 1%. Kind of a weird setup, right? Because we had these showers earlier today that really took the temperatures down, kind of took the sting out of the heat. However, it's very humid. There is a ton of moisture, and there's also a ton of wind energy, which is resulting in juice for these thunderstorms to utilize. Tropical dew point values. We see dew point values like this down in parts of Georgia, for example, this time of year, right? And it's even worse up toward Huntington and Charleston. There's just not really anything to get the storms going up that way. We have a cold front that's in the midst of crossing. So again, when we're talking about tornado safety, we want to make sure that we go into the correct place to help make sure that we stay as safe as possible. Where are those places? If you have a basement, that's the place to go, right? I mean, obviously, if you have a storm shelter, that's even better, underground. But most of us don't have that. A lot of us have a basement. But if you don't have a basement, interior room, away from windows, and with as many walls as between you and outside as possible. So somebody like me, right? I don't have a basement, so I want to get as many walls between myself and outside as possible. That's how you can stay safe in the midst of these kind of circumstances. Bree, if we could, let's go ahead and switch back over to Links 1, and let's take a look at the latest with what's going on. We still have the tornado warning going on. We have basically 2 supercells that we continue to watch very closely. And that supercell in Monroe County is looking rather interesting on the presentation there. We'll get on that here in just a moment. But first, let's look at the latest with our tornado warned thunderstorm. And that's in southeastern Tazewell, getting ready to push into Blaine County. So we'll zoom on in here. There's the cell. that's now scooting away from Burke's Garden. So that's some good news. Again, Suitor, yes, you're in the tornado warning, but you'll be just fine. And this is scooting down to the south and east. Tazewell, you've been cleared of this warning. So we're in good shape there in town. But areas farther down to the south and east, this is a tornado warning that continues until 3:45. So these are the areas that we want to definitely get into that safe spot, right? Whether that's that basement or into the interior portions of your home. The good news is this storm, in my opinion, has lost a lot of its sting. Let's take a look at the rotational component of this and see what we've got going on as far as the potential for a tornado is concerned. So there's that area of rotation. It's still having some broad rotation occurring just on the east side of Burke's Garden. You're not be interested to see if anybody has some strong wind gusts, any trees that were reported down in the Burke's Garden area. That would certainly be something that I'd be interested in looking for. So I'll probably do that after the warning is over. But not seeing anything that's immediately threatening in terms of something being on the ground. That being said, this is a broad area of rotation that has just scooted through the Burke's Garden area that's now scooting down to the south and east. So this is likely going to actually miss Ceres off to the east. So that's some good news there for our friends in Blaine County. But if you are in extreme southeastern Tazewell County and western portions of Blaine County, in between Ceres and Eagle Oak, this is going to be the time to go ahead and make sure that you're in that safe spot. Hopefully, you already are here at this point now that we've had this tornado warning going on for a little while. So that's the latest with this cell. Before we switch over to the Monroe County cell, let's zoom in to the Burke's Garden area so that we can really get a good look. So there is the area of rotation as it scoots east. So it would be along State Route 625, continuing east of town, that we'd have to keep an eye on that risk for a brief tornado. But even if we don't see a tornado with this particular cell, I'm going to pause this for a moment. You see the bright greens here. This is some strong winds that's being detected by radar. So let's put the eyedropper on this and look at the wind gusts together. This is, of course, being scanned at a few thousand feet above the ground, but there's a good chance some of this is being dragged down to the surface. So the potential is there for some wind gusts well in excess of 60 miles per hour with this particular cell as it begins to exit Tazewell County, as it exits the Burke's Garden area, and enters portions of Blaine County. So you've got EFNA farther down to the south and east. So that would be an area that we'd have to watch here as this continues to scoot into Blaine County itself. But again, that's some pretty gnarly wind gusts that's being detected by radar with this particular cell. Let's go back over to the Monroe County cell and let's see the latest with that one. So we'll zoom on in to this particular cell that's now on the east side of the eastern component of Peters Mountain. So Peters Mountain kind of right along the Monroe County border there. And this is now over toward the Laurel Branch side. So this is south of Centennial. This is south and east of Gap Mills. And let's look at the radar presentation with this particular cell now, which is looking a little more disorganized. Let's put this into motion here as we do so. And so again, that cell, let me make this more 2D. There we go. That looks a lot better. And so we can see the storm looking a little more ragged as it scoots down to the south and east, but still some broad rotation occurring over in the Laurel Branch area. This is going to be out into areas outside of our region in Virginia here shortly. A heck of a lightning show likely taking place there along the AT. Of course, you've got Hanging Rock Observatory over here. You've got Wadeville. You've got Zenith, beautiful little community out that way, likely getting hammered with some showers and thunderstorms. But the area of rotation farther off to the north and east into portions of Monroe County. So let's take a look again at that spot that we're looking at. And again, that's a fairly broad area of rotation that we're checking into there in the north or southeastern quadrant of the county, but still was something that needs to be monitored. So we'll go back to the tornado warned storm that's over into Tazewell and Blaine counties and see the latest with that. We're going to be switching back and forth with this storm here for a bit. And again, there is that rotation that continues to scoot down into Blaine County now. So we're kind of on the county border at this point. So when we're looking at this, I'm actually going to switch over. I think a better shot of the rotation with this will be from the Charleston radar. Why do I say that? Because it's all about the location that the storm is relative to the radar. So we're looking from the Blacksburg radar, which is going to be well off to the east here. So we don't really get a good slice of what this rotation looks like. So the green means it's moving toward the radar. So that means these particles are moving toward the radar. The Red indicates areas that are moving away, but again, you don't get a good slice. This is not a good angle from the radar. So let's switch over to the Charleston radar here for a moment and see what we can see there. So this is a little bit of a different look at this storm, but we may get a better look at the rotation. Yeah, this is pretty broad stuff. So the red at this point is moving away from the radar. So the radar is showing particles moving away from the storm, and then the green indicates rotation that's moving toward the radar. So there's some broad rotation here, but this is not anything that's looking overly concerning here at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if this tornado warning is allowed to expire at this point here by 3:45, unless we see some rapid development occur. Still, though, there is some mid-level rotation that is occurring. This storm has been a little bit deviant, and what we mean by that is it's kind of curving as it does move. Let's move this back up to the north and west and take a look at what I'm talking about. So this storm kind of making a curved move. That's kind of a signature move, a right turn from a supercell thunderstorm when they start to continue to propagate farther down to their next destination. They kind of have that right turning effect on them. So again, we'll see if this warning is allowed to expire. But in the meantime, if you are in western Blaine County, you're still going to want to go ahead and get into your safe spot. That does include over toward the small community of Ethna, over into Eagle Oak. Suter, this is a close miss, but it is going to remain down to your south here. The main area of concern is farther down here into Blaine County here at this point. And again, this rotation continuing to dissolve a bit on radar. Before we switch back over to this and see what the Weather Service is going to do, let's go back to the broader perspective to show you what's going on. And just as we were talking, we have numerous severe thunderstorm watches that have been allowed to expire. So we no longer are under a severe thunderstorm watch in Fayette, Raleigh, or Wyoming counties in our region. And we'll likely see this continue to be the case here as the afternoon goes on with these storms that continue to push down to the south. By 5 o'clock, this is really not even going to be a talker. These storms will be well out of here by then. And so, again, it's been a small window of opportunity for these thunderstorms to become strong to severe, but it's certainly been one that they've taken advantage of, as this is now the second thunderstorm that we've had this afternoon that has become tornado warned. We do when I was live on Facebook earlier, folks were asking about some of the storms that were redeveloping across portions of Greenbrier County. And yes, we do have some downpours that are in these areas, but these are not expected to become severe. These storms that are racing their way down to the south and east are really eating up the juice that's present in the atmosphere at this point. Now, another thunderstorm that is strengthening, though, that will need to be watched will be one there near the news station here in southern portions of Raleigh, entering parts of Mercer County. So again, until this complex of thunderstorms continues to work its way out of the region to the south and east, the risk for severe weather will continue. Of course, we'll keep a close eye on this for you, but that tornado warning has now been allowed to expire. And so we're going to go ahead and return back to your regularly scheduled broadcast. If we do have any additional tornado warnings that are issued, of course, we're going to cut back in. But in the meantime, we're in the clear for now, and we'll continue to monitor things both on air and online, WVNSTV.com. For now, though, Chief Meteorologist Joe Fitzwater will return back to your regularly scheduled broadcast right now.